Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to this video where I'm going to be going over everything to do with the new open wheel F1 cars, lap time, top speed, damage, tyre wear, setup changes, all that kind of stuff. I'm covering it all in one single video, and that's why it's taken a bit of time to come out, because obviously I wanted to do some proper testing about everything and bring it all to you at the same time. So first of all, with lap time, we can see that without KERS, the PR4 gets a lap time of 56.3 seconds, and the R88 gets a lap time of 57.5. Both of those are quicker than the Emirates, which is, well, previously before this was the quickest car in the game in terms of lap time. 56 seconds, that's the first time we've ever seen a car get that lap time as well. Just to point out that these are generally accurate lap times, but they're not to like 3 decimal places or anything, because I've had to basically go load up an open wheel race and go to this area of the map to do the testing, because these vehicles aren't available in the creator to do the testing that I normally do. So it's not the absolute official testing, that won't come until we get the vehicles in the creator and I can take them around the regular testing track with all the props and the more accurate timing, but it's as near as makes no difference. You know, the lap times aren't going to change all that much. I guess apart from the PR4 with KERS, I feel like I didn't really get the most out of this lap. But even so, 55.7 seconds for the PR4 with KERS, 55.9 with the R88. Really, the R88 probably only gets that because it can regenerate the KERS boost a little bit more because it's generally slower. But you got to remember that KERS only regenerates when you're braking or off the throttle. And around this track, you're not off the throttle or braking enough to even regenerate a full bar of KERS boost. So, and there's only one place that you're going to use it, which is out of the hairpin anyway. So the effectiveness of KERS really isn't that much, but you know, it is enough to put both cars into the 55-second lap time range, which is absolutely crazy. And around a lap, these are absolutely the quickest things that are in the game, in terms of cars at least, not bikes. Now when it comes to top speed, these definitely aren't the quickest things in the game. Both the PR4 and the R88 have top speeds of 119 miles per hour. By the way, just to keep in mind, these are all on stock setups. I'll explain about that more when we get to the setups part of the video. And while normal speedometers in the game are completely inaccurate and you should never trust them when we're talking about analog speedos in most cars, digital speedometers can be trusted at least to within a 1 mile per hour margin of error. So that's what I'm using to get these figures. 119 miles per hour for both the PR4 and the R88 without KERS, and then with KERS you see that the speed boosts up to about 170 miles per hour momentarily, just for a split second, and then drops immediately back down. And that's why KERS is always much more effective in terms of acceleration than it is in terms of top speed, because you never really hold that high top speed for that much time anyway for it to be worth using over and above getting to the higher speeds on acceleration much quicker. However, both lap time and top speed for these cars is dependent on a number of factors and can change. Those factors are tyres, setup and damage. So first of all, we've got a cornering test for each of the different tyre types as well as free roam, and what we see is basically a 1 frame difference between when these tyres hit that yellow line, and that is, you know, tiny. Really, free roam and soft are within a margin of error that free roam tyres are probably soft levels of grip, but then the mediums are 1 frame after the softs and the hards are 1 frame after the mediums. It's such a tiny difference in terms of grip levels that you're not going to notice that much of a difference in races. The softs aren't going to suddenly give you so much more grip and such better lap times. Similarly for top speed, we see approximately the same top speed for each of the tyre types. Soft tyres about 119 miles per hour, same for mediums, and then the hards were flicking between 120 and 119 on the speedo. That could also be to do with tyre wear, because it seems like when tyre wear is depleting, top speed does increase very slightly, and then it increases a lot when you lose grip on the tyres completely. But it also could just be that, you know, when I do the proper testing, the softs have a top speed of 119.5, the mediums 119.75, and the hards 120.0. We'll have to wait until I'm able to do some proper testing for that. So the performance between the tyre types really isn't all that significant, but what about tyre life? Well, the only thing that affects how long the tyres last is how much cornering you're doing. Driving in a straight line does either nothing or very, very little. So tracks that are more corner heavy will have shorter tyre life per lap than tracks that have more straights. What I did to test this is basically just ran a circle in the airport after driving there during a race and kept going until the tyres wore out. One part of this comparison that we can also see is the position of the blue building in each of the soft, medium and hard tyres. It gives you an idea of how much better the soft tyres are to the hards and the mediums in terms of the speed they can carry in the corners, but it's really not all that much, as you can see here. I'm moving it on 2 minutes further into the test and we get to see that comparison again, where the blue building is almost out of the range of the soft frame. It's just coming into the hard frame and it's right in the middle of the medium. So after pretty much 3 minutes of constant turning, this is the only difference. So that's further showing that the softs, mediums and hards in terms of performance and grip levels really isn't all that much. So now we're moving on to the aspect where tyres are going to start to fail, and there's 3 main areas of this. The first thing that will happen is that the tyre indicator will hit the red zone, and that happens with the soft tyres in the rain after around 3 minutes. One thing to note that should be evident from this is that as tyre wear depletes, cornering grip remains the same. You don't gradually lose grip over the course of a stint. Even when you first get into the red zone, you keep the same grip levels as when the tyres were brand new. Only about halfway into the red zone do you reach a point where you suddenly lose grip and start to understeer more, which happens, as you can see there, in the rain on soft tyres around 20 seconds after hitting the red zone. Rain really does have a big effect because we're already experiencing grip loss before we even hit the red zone on the soft tyres in the dry, which happens after around 3 minutes and 38 seconds, as you can see there. So at this point, all of the tyres in the dry are experiencing their normal levels of grip, even though the soft tyres are in the red zone. But this is where we're going to see a few things happen all at once. First of all, the soft tyres in the rain experience complete tyre failure just before the 4 minute mark. Then the mediums hit the red zone just after the 4 minute mark. And then the softs hit that grip loss cliff after 4 minutes and 8 seconds and start to understeer more around the track, as you can see right there, and not be able to corner quite as well. At this point, you'll start to see the mediums and the hards actually come back and overtake the softs as they're able to maintain higher cornering speeds for longer. And the same thing is going to happen to the mediums when they hit the cliff of grip as well. So hards don't have any change until almost 4.5 minutes in when they hit the red zone, but they're still functioning perfectly fine at their normal grip levels. And a few seconds later the mediums lose their grip as well, leaving only the hards cornering normally. The softs get complete tyre failure after 4 minutes and 45 seconds, and we don't start experiencing grip loss in the hards until after 5 minutes. Around 10 seconds after that, the mediums fail completely, which leaves only the hards left, which soldier on for a further 35 seconds before finally giving up nearly 6 minutes into the test. So this shows a number of things. The first is that there are distinct areas where you will start to lose grip and then the tyre will fail completely. But apart from those 2 points, you're going to experience the same grip. Tyre grip doesn't deplete gradually as the stint wears on. Also, you need to keep in mind that this is for constant cornering. And in races, there's going to be a mix of straights as well as corners at slower speeds, which mean that tyre life will be much longer for any given track. But this can still serve as a guide for what to use in any given situation. It's just that, tracks are going to be different. Now, what is the most important aspect of this is grip loss, because that's when you're going to lose time in a race. You're going to be not able to corner as effectively. Yes, it's not as bad as tyre failure, but you're going to be slower. The red zone, you still got the same amount of tyre grip, so it's more just an indicator saying you need to be pitting very shortly. But imagine there's a track where the soft tyres will last 12 minutes and 24 seconds before they experience that cliff of grip loss. That means that the mediums, based on this testing, would last around 13 minutes and 36 seconds, with the hards not experiencing that grip loss cliff until 15 minutes and 12 seconds into the race. Again, this is all hypothetical, and every track will be different, and you'd have to do your own testing for whatever track you're using. But in this instance, a 10-minute race, you might as well use the softs because everyone is going to be able to get through the race without a pit stop. But for a 15-minute race, you might as well put the hards on, because the softs and the mediums have to do one pit stop and the hards don't need to do any. When you get to a 30-minute race, the softs and the mediums need to make 2 pit stops, whereas the hards would be able to get through the race with only 1. So as we saw, because the pace difference between the tyres is so small, and softs really aren't that much quicker than hards, you might as well make it so that you make as little pit stops as possible, because you lose more time making a pit stop than you'd ever gain by having a quicker compound of tyres. One final thing to point out is that the bulletproof tyre upgrade actually matters when the tyres reach the end of their life, basically the tyre failure section from earlier. Without bulletproof tyres or with a stock vehicle, the tyres will pop completely after you've had your period of grip loss, but with bulletproof tyres they won't, meaning you'll at least be able to get to the pits easier, although not easily, if you do find yourself caught out. So now it's time to move on to setups, and in what is quite a surprising and sophisticated development, front and rear wings on these open wheel cars actually add downforce. Downforce uses the air to push the car into the ground, meaning more downforce leads to higher cornering speeds but lower top speed, and less downforce leads to lower cornering speeds but higher top speeds. Scousegaffer on Twitter posted some values from the game files in 2 images, one for each car, which show the effect of each front and rear wing option when upgrading the cars in Los Santos Customs. Higher values mean more downforce, lower values mean less downforce. So the highest downforce setup is gained on the PR4 by using the legendary front wing on the front and the extreme wing on the back, with the lowest downforce setup achieved by using the low front wing on the front and the shortened wing on the back. Notice that the stock values of 1 are actually closer to the low downforce setup than the high, meaning that by default the cars are in a lower downforce setup. So I wanted to test 3 different setups, one with the highest downforce possible, which is what we're seeing there, one with the lowest downforce possible, which is what we're seeing here, and one with the stock wings. Obviously there's hundreds of possibilities and different combinations that you could use, high on the front, low on the back, all sorts, but I wanted to see what the limits were in each case with a high downforce setup versus a low downforce setup versus stock. So first of all, another cornering test between high downforce and low downforce, same thing as before where we're looking to see which car hits the yellow line first, and it's very clear to see the difference between the high downforce setup on the car and the low downforce setup. It's a big difference in terms of cornering ability. Now this also, like I said, high downforce means lower top speeds, and we can see that when you're in the high downforce setup, the top speed drops to 113 miles per hour. With the low downforce setup, the top speed actually increasing from stock to 121. So 121 is pretty much the maximum top speed you can get out of these cars in a low downforce setup. But, and this is the reason that I did the testing that you just saw in free roam, this doesn't actually transfer over to open wheel races, as we can see. The high downforce setup in free roam is very different to the exact same car, but in an open wheel race lobby. But why is that? Well, it turns out that the values of the front and rear wings default to 1 as soon as you start an open wheel race, meaning whatever wings you have on the car make absolutely no difference in a race, and the car performs exactly like it just had stock options on. This can obviously be seen by the comparisons here, showing a stock downforce setup in free roam has the exact same cornering ability and top speed as the high downforce setup in a race. This is further confirmed by a video again from Scousegaffer, and I'll leave a link to his video as well as the images with the performance impact of each front and rear wing options down below, where he shows categorically that as soon as an open wheel race starts, the values that the game has assigned to the front and rear wings magically default to 1, which means a stock setup. Whether this is intentional or not, we don't know. If you're watching this in the future, check the description and I'll update that if this has changed and setups actually do work in races. But for now, we simply don't know whether Rockstar intended this not to work so that everyone has the same experience in a race, or it's simply a bug that will be fixed. Either way, this section should have given you all the info that you need to know how these cars work with regards to their front and rear wing modifications and the effect of having different levels of downforce on the cars, but none of it matters in a racing situation. So despite setup not actually having an effect in races, damage certainly does. If you lose the front wing, you'll lose front grip. If you lose the rear wing, you'll lose rear grip. Lose both and things will get really bad. In all instances, your top speed will be higher in the same way that having a smaller wing works. Basically removing the front and rear wings removes downforce, a certain amount of downforce from the car, and your top speed actually increases by 7 miles per hour over a stock setup in a racing situation. But you won't be able to corner very well because again, you're removing downforce from the car. Yes, you're getting a higher top speed, but you just understeer like crazy. And you can see the comparison between a normal healthy car and a broken car is just, it's very large. So you really don't want this damage. You can only fix damage by making a pit stop. By the way, respawning doesn't work when it comes to open wheel races. And yeah, like I said, this does actually have an effect in races, so losing your front and rear wings does have an effect in races, but the setup differences and the type of wings that you have in a race makes no difference at all. So that should pretty much cover everything. It's actually been really invigorating to delve into all of this kind of stuff again with something completely new. I've kind of missed it, it's been quite a while, but I do wish that all of these setup tweaks did carry over to the races, since it would be really interesting to have different downforce levels be better on some tracks than others, as well as have the ability to set up a car to personal preference. For example, having a bit of high downforce on the front but low downforce on the rear, things like that, and mix and match to your own personal preferences. But as always, I will keep you informed if anything is changed with any of this, and as soon as we get the ability to create open wheel tracks in the race creator, I will test these cars officially and make my proper and normal lap time and top speed testing videos that I normally do. Make sure that you're subscribed if you're new and want to be kept up to date on all this stuff, and if you want to support the work that I do, by all means check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member by clicking the join button for some extra perks. This video was a lot of work, but I'm pretty sure I managed to cover everything in one go, and hopefully it's going to be a help to you. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.